Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Howard Friedman. I'm an event director here at UBM Cannon. We're very pleased that you're here for this session. This is something that's very near and dear to the hearts of people here in California, and that's strategies for expanding California's exports. It's a really important topic, and it's something that we're very excited about presenting to you. In terms of a few housekeeping things, if you have cell phones and if you wouldn't mind silencing them, that would be terrific. There will be questions and answers at the end, so if you could hold them, there'll be a person bringing you around a microphone who can make you audible. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speakers today. The person who will be leading us off is Kevin Clouden, who's the managing economist for the Milken Institute, which is a Santa Monica-based organization that does wonderful, wonderful research and lots of other great things. He's also the director for their California Center. Kevin specializes in demographics, distribution of resources, business locations, and movement of labor. He's an economist by background. He's written many, many articles, including one that really caught my attention about helping to build California exports. He coordinates the Milken Institute's Los Angeles Economy Project and has served on many advisory boards for the city of Los Angeles. Joining Kevin today are two panelists that will be having some remarks on their own and will also be involved in a panel discussion. The first one is Gunjan Bagala. He is the founder of Amritt. It's a global innovation consultancy. He comes from a manufacturing background, so manufacturing is very near and dear to his heart. He consults to many medical device and related companies and specializes in helping clients grapple with economies of India and China. He's an expert on India, China, and consults regularly to the Financial Times and the New York Times. He's spoken on the BBC, and so he's very, very well and widely known. His articles have also been featured in the Harvard Business Review, so we bring some great expertise here. Joining Kevin and Gunjan is Jack Stewart, and we're very pleased to have Jack. He's come all the way from Sacramento. He is the president of the California Manufacturers and Technology Association. The CMTA is an 85-year-old organization that's statewide. It's a nonprofit, and it's dedicated to help stimulate California's manufacturing growth and job creation. And that's so important to the economy here in California. He's been with the association for 20 years and has served as president since 1998. Is it 20 years?
I've been with the association 20 years.
20, okay. 28, and he's been with the, since 98 he's been the president. He's very involved in legislation, has been doing it for a long time in Washington and Sacramento and perhaps a few other places as well. He's a native of Pennsylvania and now lives with his family in Sacramento.
So I came to California as a young person getting involved in manufacturing in Culver City. And one of my first and most uplifting experiences was that the company I was working for had experienced about a 20-25% increase in orders, and they were getting ready to start to outsource the manufacturing to a low-cost location. And I talked with my boss, and I said, let's see if we can put in a little bit of automation and keep some of the work right here on our factory floor in Culver City, which is about the most absurd place to think about a manufacturing facility. But it turned out that I worked with not Rosie, but a woman named Gloria, who was a Polish immigrant who barely spoke any English. But we sat down and worked together, and we programmed this machine called the Royonic Component Locator. And within a couple of days, they told me she was unskilled and whatever, but she was a smart person, and within a couple of days, she was able to do the basic programming of that machine so that we could start stuffing components 3 or 4 times faster than we used to. Long story short, that whole process grew into a point where we could essentially keep those manufacturing jobs right in Culver City at that time and be able to grow the force and actually produce at a much lower cost than we used to. This was some years ago. But fast forward to today, what I'm going to talk to you about, the subject of my talk is how to help improve exports of medical devices into India. Okay. Some of the companies listed at the bottom of this slide are the types of clients that we have worked with, but we work across many different industries. So I just have one slide in my presentation, and so let me talk a little bit about India. How many of you are currently doing business in India? Okay, so just a few of you, maybe about 20% or less. India is an interesting market and economy today, I think, because it's soon going to be $2 trillion. And you might know that President Obama visited India about 2 years ago. His primary mission to go to India, one of the two primary goals was relative to improving exports of American goods into India. India is already buying a tremendous amount of food product. One of our clients is the largest grower of pistachios in the world, and they grow the pistachios in the San Joaquin Valley, and we get them exported and sold into India. They're buying a lot of defense equipment, which is a huge market for American companies. But I'm going to try and focus my attention more on medical devices and the underlying factors that drive those. So today, a large number of companies are selling both new and used medical devices into India. The presence of American companies in particular has actually stimulated the growth of Indian companies and creating new ideas and new products to address the lower cost segment of the market that historically American companies have not been able to address. Okay? But there's a nice synergy going on today as people are leaving General Electric's R&D facility in Bangalore to start a company of their own, or leaving Philips or Siemens and starting a company of their own. And very soon, some of those companies will become great acquisition targets for California and American companies to be able to really create a larger ecosystem for products that can be sold worldwide. Okay. The factors that are driving the growth in India today really have to do with the fundamental demographics of India. In 1991, the country began to liberalize. And today, the medical device market is only about $3, $4, or $5 billion, depending on whom you speak to. Milken should probably do a study in India to get more accurate numbers.
You want to fund it?
Sure. Yeah, the driving factors are the rise of the middle class in India. Today, there's probably about 80 million people in India who live a life similar to the American middle class. That number, by most measures, is going to go to 500 million over the next 15 years. But not only that average income is growing every year. So you have the compounding effect of incomes increasing as well as the size of the middle class increasing. Okay? And these are not hypothetical or fictitious numbers. We already see these trends happening. Say, for example, in the number of cell phones. 10 years ago, India had 1 million cell phones. Today, it has 900 million cell phones. And at least 600 million people of those 900 million are people who have no other device of any kind. No radio, no computer, no television. The primary device is a cell phone that's almost as good as the one that you and I have. Okay? I gave a talk earlier today where I talked about the cell phone being a medical device. Okay? Think about that for a minute. Okay? When you put a device like that in the hands of somebody who earns $2 a day, there's potential to use it as a medical device. And if you can operate in that domain, you can actually bring products and services, into the Indian consumer in a way that really hasn't been done so far. India is the country that has more diabetics than any country in the world, and we've done a number of studies for our Western clients on how to start to take, to leverage that market. Diseases that have been long gone in much of the rest of the world, such as tuberculosis and malaria, are present in significant numbers in India. And so companies are designing new devices in the United States and manufacturing them here to be able to take them there and address this market in a more effective manner than has been done today. Okay? And finally, today, if you are a medical consumer in India and you get sick, chances are you are paying out of your own pocket for any medical treatment, and we all know that limits the ability for people to spend. That is starting to change because companies are starting to offer plans. Insurance is growing, and the government has committed to doubling the amount of expenditure on medical services from about 1 point something percent to about 2.5% of GDP. So all of those factors are going to cause this perfect storm in India, where I think if I come 3 years from now, 5 years from now, and ask how many of you are doing business in India, I think I'll see most of your hands go up. So it's a huge market that I think you should take advantage of. The other factor to keep in mind is that the Indian government's policies, curiously today, actually discourage the growth of local companies. If you are a company in India and you want to build a medical device and you have one component that you are importing, hopefully from California, putting it into that device, that component attracts a duty, okay, of anywhere from 20 to 30%. Okay. However, if you import the complete device from California, there's no duty at all, as long as it's a medical device. Okay. So this is something, of course, the local companies are fighting against, and sooner or later, the government will listen to them. So this right now is actually a good time for people to get in and establish a footprint and get a market before these regulations start to change. So I'm going to stop there, and I'll be delighted to take questions later on. Thank you very much.
I'm going to ask a couple quick questions to Gunjan and Jack, and then we're going to allow time for a few questions from the audience. First, I think, Jack, one really important element is that what are one or two things California could do to quickly improve its industrial investment climate? The numbers were terrifyingly low recently in terms of the amount of investment.
They are, and the two things that are on the table that are possible, I think, this year is one is our regulatory reform, the CEQA law reform, and the ability to get quickly through that process. And again, using the Texas comparison, you can get a permit in Texas in a number of weeks. In California, it takes at least 2 years. And if you get challenged, there's no finality to our process. It can be challenged over and over again. It can take sometimes 4, 6, or 8 years to actually get your final approval. And sometimes companies just back away from it after so long. And the challenges don't necessarily come from the environmental community. They sometimes come from NIMBY people, not in my backyard folks, who don't want a plant near them. It comes from labor who want to make sure that the plant is unionized once it's built. It comes from competitors who lost the bid to build the plant or build the building. So it's a very challenging law, and there's a lot of pressure in Sacramento to do something about it this year. And the other thing is what, I'll call it simply the factory tax, the sales tax exemption on manufacturing equipment that adds so much to the cost of investment in California. So I think reform our environmental regulation, our big one, CEQA, and also do the factory tax.
Got it. And which, given the fact that we want to sell manufactured goods overseas, one question I've got actually direct to both of you is that if California established a trade mission in India, would it provide a real opportunity for selling and promoting manufactured goods there?
Yes, absolutely. I think so. I talked to you about our pistachio client, Paramount Farms, and when we took them to India, we did the bulk of the work to make it happen. But the U.S. Department of Agriculture has an active team there, okay, and they really knew what they were doing. I was a little, hesitant to use their help at first because I wasn't sure what value they would provide, but they were extremely forthcoming. They were very complimentary to the work that we did, so we didn't have to duplicate much of their effort. And I think if California were to establish an office, in India, I think it would be a dramatic advantage to local companies. We have tremendous medical device companies both in the Bay Area and here in Southern California, and I think they need that push to be able to have that visibility.
Jack?
Yeah. I completely agree. We need to have the visibility. We need to have a strategy to go about that. I mean, companies do their own marketing, but the state can help an awful lot with a trade office and with a targeted sales, a trade mission to India.
Now, we mentioned medical devices. That brings up what kind of manufactured goods does California retain a competitive advantage in terms of exports? What are the things that we make still here that are in demand in some place like India or in China or elsewhere?
So I think products that have a high value add, high ticket price typically, and products that can readily be shipped by air, I think are very, it makes perfect sense to manufacture them in California and ship them worldwide. India is about as far as you can go before you start coming closer, right? It's 12 and a half hours away. So transportation costs can be an issue. Just getting goods in and out can be an issue. But if you have, many medical devices are very high value. You can get a lot into a small box. And so those types of products, I think it makes tremendous sense. And the other area where I think it makes sense is where there is a high degree of intellectual property. Because those are the areas where we find in many cases our clients are quite reluctant to put any manufacturing at all in China. Okay? However, India doesn't have some of those same issues. So often you can do a combination where much of the manufacturing is happening in California and some final value add is happening in India, and then you use that as a base to sell to the entire region, not just to India's small market.
I would just add to that, California has a huge opportunity to develop energy as an export, and I think that's something that we ought to be focusing on as well. And there is a lot of discussion in Sacramento right now about how we're going to develop energy in our natural resources in the very near future, with fracking going on in Pennsylvania and Texas and North Dakota. California has the reserves. It can be done safely. We just have to get over this hump and get the regulations written and get permission to do that. And I think we can see, we could really see a huge energy boom in California if we develop what we have here.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that it doesn't even have to be the raw products. It's really the refined products that are the big deal. And the fact is that the capacity for refined energy products is severely short of the demand in places such as China and India. And we have a real opportunity to export into those markets, especially as the middle class grows. Now, one last question that I want to just throw out before we open it up is if somebody who's going to is already involved in exports, could they take what they know from one country, such as China or Latin America, and apply it to another country, like South Korea or India? Is it how much can you have a similar strategy, and how much do you need to be able to localize it in terms of what the demand is?
I really don't know the answer to that,
Yeah,
but I would guess there is a difference, and you have to learn the trade laws, the regulations that the various companies have. Countries have. I would just think that there is but there are companies that do very well in exports. I mean, I have a small manufacturer who manufactures plastic products for kinds of plastic products used in medical to guard the surgeon from splatters from the patient, the kind of plastic you use in masks for the military. He's out in Temecula, he has developed a worldwide market for his products. It's a kind of a low-tech product, but he's figured out how you do exports and what has to be done and how you have to do it and how you have to individualize it by country, and he does a very good job.
Yeah. So in all the consulting that we do in helping people become successful in India, the one consistent message over the last 5 to 7 years that we have seen is that the biggest mistake that American companies make is that they think India is China 2.0. Right? I've figured out how to sell into Shanghai and Beijing, and let me apply what I learned there in India. It just doesn't work. It's good if your competitors are doing that. But it's not good for you to do that. For example, I mentioned earlier, the respect for intellectual property is very different between the two countries, right? But let me give you something else. Both the US and India are free market democracies, right? China is not, okay? This is both good and bad, right? So if your product has a problem in India, it'll be on the front pages of the newspapers, it'll be on Twitter, it'll be all over the place in no time at all. Just last week I read McDonald's had to pay 15,000 rupees because somebody got a meat burger instead of a veggie burger. Now, 15,000 rupees is not a lot of money, but the story was carried, on the front pages of the newspapers, right? And that can be an embarrassment. Generally, that way, if you keep the Chinese government happy, it's not going to happen in China, right? So it's a different environment, different market that you have to be aware of. The other big difference, I think, for medical device companies going to India is that India is not just a market. It is also a place where you can utilize high highly trained talent to develop next generation medical devices collaboratively. Okay. Generally speaking, we find that med device companies are much more eager to want to do that in India than any other country. GE has 5,000 people in India, Siemens, Philips, our own client, Covidian, has set up an R&D center in Hyderabad. And those opportunities, I think, are much more compelling to do this in India for a global market.
Right. Okay. Now, we have time for a couple questions from the audience. Does anybody have one?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Cool. Hi, I'm Sean Boyke, by the way.
Yep.
American Industrial and...
Mike is coming.
Oh, there's a mic. Hi. Okay. Well, good afternoon. My name is Sean Boyke from American Industrial, also Solution Vehicles. I originally come from Boeing, okay, as a manager there, and also with Northrop, and also with Honeywell, so and PPG. So, anyway, I've managed all those companies that are leaving here, except for Honeywell and Northrop. But anyway, my one concern was, are you guys doing the free trades? Because I know we were doing an American free trade with South Korea, and I was pushing that. Do we have something in South Korea with California?
Nothing that I know
Yeah.
of. Nothing.
Okay,
that I know of.
that's a huge market. Now on your concern with it, because I'm used to seeing things with India, I actually took a director position with HCL, which is a $5 billion India company, but I was doing the aerospace side for America, for ITAR, because that's what I do, right? But being from Honeywell and also what I've noticed about India, the only caveat I'd have with that is some of their materials, they do sneak in some very degraded, bad materials. We had some bearings that failed because they had substandard material sciences to them. Also, when it comes to trade with India, at least in aerospace, you have to do sharing with them, okay, which means you have to do offloading to them. Okay, that's just a standard. So they want to take over all the stuff that's really high tech, right? But we don't give it to them. We give them the simple structure stuff. So that's the concern with India. I've seen even worse with China, because they're like family members that build everything over there, okay? Then the other thing was, sorry, I'm going to ask three questions. This one is, now if we did become energy, would we have to increase our refinement capability, and would we have to make them to the new regulations, or would we build them to the old grandfather clause sites? Now, with our regulations in California, we kill ourselves. I mean,
You're right. The last new refinery that was built in California was in 1960. It's the Benicia, originally the Exxon refinery. That's now, I believe, it's Valero now. But
right, that's huge. I've
huge.
flown over it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's huge.
And that's what the refineries have done. They've expanded their output, but they have not been able to build a new.
Are they maxed at their volume, or would we have to build more?
Well, I mean, it would certainly be beneficial if we started producing petroleum in this state, crude. I would believe that we'd want to increase our.
We'd increase our
refining.
capacity.
That would be the best of both
So
worlds.
we're running at like 70% volume to capacity right now?
I don't know what the number.
There is a disruption also, the fact that you've got the problems that with the Chevron Richmond plant, and that's certainly hit capacity. Obviously, our gas prices are affected, but the fact is that one of the issues there is that they needed to get local approval for upgrades they wanted to do, which would have increased their ability not only for local sales, but also for exports. And that when redoing facilities, even if you can get through the permits, you still have to get through the local resistance, which can often be significant.
And that's what's stopping in addition to the fire at Richmond, Chevron Richmond, they've also been trying to do an expansion there and an upgrade, and they've been stymied by the local community.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So let me just address the India portion of your question. So
Sorry.
I see you are from Long Beach, and the Boeing Long Beach facility that manufactures the C-17 would have been shut down today if it were not for a $4 billion order from the Indian Air Force. At the end of that order, at the end of that shipment, India is going to be the largest operator of C-17s outside of the U.S. Air Force.
Yep.
Okay. So good California jobs right here being funded by the Indian taxpayer. In the medical device business, there are no limitations for 100% foreign equity. You don't have to share your IP. You can manufacture the product anywhere in the world and bring it into India. So it's wide open for the people in this audience.
Thank you.
My name is Joshua Wong. I spend half of my time in California, and the other half of my time in Hong Kong. And I just saw that the governor is going to take a delegate to China. I'd like to know from the panel, as far as you know, what would he be trying to do? And from your point of view, what do you think he should be trying to do? Thank you.
The normal procedure is that it's supposed to be two things. It's supposed to be promotional and it's supposed to be fact finding. That meeting with local partners, meeting with people who might be local distributors. A lot of it is really just to promote. What it does is it gives an opportunity to promote the state as a trade partner, as a specific location for things, and also ideally to promote California goods in particular. If he was really, my argument is that if he's going to really be making a difference, is that he should be be getting an understanding from the meetings of what it actually takes for California to have better penetration of the Chinese market and to be able to sell goods better in China, and what steps need to be taken by California to be more competitive. That's the biggest thing he needs to be able to do. The promotion is great, but the promotion needs to continue once he's gone.
Yes, and that's the value of having the offices in China as well. He goes over there and does the high-level visibility PR work, and then they go in and do the grunt work. Yes, sir.
What? That you'd have to talk to them on. Yeah, I'll send them a PDF that they'll have available on the website.
I have some copies of mine if you like it.
Yeah, and you can also if you can get a business card and you can ask me, and we can do it that as well.
So just to add to that, my company is actually going to produce a white paper on the Indian medical device market in about a month. So if anybody wants, leave me your business card and we can get that to you.
All right. If we don't have any other questions, just would like we go one more? Yeah, okay.
Hello, my name is Doug, and I have one little itty-bitty question on here, and that is to the standard of living based upon the NAFTA, CAFTA, and all the other FTAs. Basically, what we've done is we've given away our economic advantage and lowered the overall income of the U.S., and we've used the maquiladoras to pollute the Mexican soil. Is that what you are proposing to do to California?
Absolutely not. I mean, we have the strongest environmental regulations in the world here. We're not.
Yet you oppose them.
What?
And you say that they have to
No.
be weakened.
I'm not opposing them. I'm saying we have to streamline. We have to make them easier to apply to comply with. For somebody that's going to invest in California, if it's an unending process, you're going to quickly lose interest in investments. What you need is a process that protects the environment, and once the process is done, it's over. That it can't be challenged again and again and again. And I have the confidence. I mean, I work with the regulatory agencies in Sacramento. They're not going to be signing off on environmental projects that are going to harm the environment. We are probably the cleanest manufacturing in the world right now, and the purpose is not to make California a dirtier place. It's to make it easier to comply with the regulations we have.
Just as to interject, it's one of the common misperceptions that runs into with CEQA reform. It's not elimination. There are groups who'd love to see it eliminated. Don't get me wrong, but that would never ever happen. Quite honestly, I mean, there's just no environment for that. What you have right now is a situation where even environmental projects, including brownfield site reclamations, solar power, wind power sites, attempts at cleaning, often even at cleaning sites up or providing new uses, run into CEQA regulation and other regulatory issues. Quite often you run into a situation where it's much easier to develop a greenfield site than to reuse a brownfield site which is far, far better for the environment and for cities because of regulatory concerns. That's what you're talking about. In many cases, we're fixing a number of very poor decisions that weren't, it's not even talking about that CEQA going back to the late 60s, early 70s. We're talking about decisions in a regulatory standpoint that in some cases go back to the 20s and 30s. Anyway, at this point, we're out of time. So I'd like to thank fellow panelists and you for attending.